Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We'll be covering 4 different topics. The first one is Matt Chapman finally signing, and him signing with the San Francisco Giants, of course. So that's our big story of the weekend. We'll be talking about that first and foremost. Then we'll be talking about other free agents, predictions where they go, how Chapman could affect them, that kind of stuff. Third, we'll be talking about Zack Wheeler signing an extension with the Philadelphia Phillies and what's happening there. And finally, just some general news around the league and stories as well. But before we do that, I would like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read on the air, please use the link of gsmcpodcast.net. Make sure, again, to like and follow the show. Subscribe as well. I noticed 51% of you that are watching my content and our content as a network in general are not subscribed, so please do make sure that you do subscribe. You get notified every time we upload. You get notified every time we do anything. So, it really does help us make sure you're in tune with the content. And, thank you so much for that. And let's get into our first topic here, which, of course, is the main story. Oh, sorry. That's not our first topic. That's not good. That's our first topic. There we go. The main story of the weekend, the big baseball thing that's been going on right now, and that, of course, is Matt Chapman signing with the San Francisco Giants. Now, of course, Matt Chapman was part of the illustrious Boris 4, the 4 free agents represented by Scott Boras, who had not signed yet closer to spring training, even though they were bona fide stars in this league. Cody Bellinger, also part of that sign before him. Chapman then followed, and then we only had 2 left. We'll be talking about that in segment 2, don't worry, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves right now. But, so Matt Chapman went to the San Francisco Giants over the weekend. Let's talk about it. So the deal is structured as a 1-year deal structured really as a 1-year deal, but in reality, it's a 3-year deal with 2 player opt-outs. It's 3 years, $54 million. I think it's, so Chapman gets, of course, this 1 year, and then he can opt out after the second year, after the first year and after the second year. So it's very similar to the Bellinger contract in a way of that you have the potential of going up to a long-term deal. But I don't think either team wants that because if the player wants that because that means he's not performing very well if he does use that player option. So my general thoughts on the deal are, first of all, I always knew Chapman was going to go to the Giants. We heard a report from Farhan Zaidi himself, who is the Giants' president of baseball operations, that they weren't looking to make any more significant moves for the offseason. While that did make sense, in my opinion, I just thought Chapman was such the perfect fit for them. And, no matter what he said, sorry about that, I did ultimately think Chapman would end up in San Francisco, and that's what happened. I thought, even though that it made sense that they didn't want any more significant moves, Chapman just made too much sense to the Giants. We've talked about this a million times now, but now it's even more relevant because he has ended up signing there. But he's from the Bay Area. He used to play in the Bay Area when he was with Oakland. He used to play for Bob Melvin, who was the Giants' new manager. Giants had a clear need at third base. It made so much sense for Chapman to go to the Giants. Even when Zaidi did say what he said, I kind of always had it in the back of my mind that, I said it on here as well, that, okay, I still think Chapman to the Giants makes too much sense. And inevitably it did, and he ends up going there. So my general thoughts on the deal, though, are that I love this deal for the player and the team. First, for the team, Chapman comes with a lot of risks. I'm not going to deny that right now. There was a reason, he was on the market as long as he was, because he's not a perfect player. He's not a perfect, guy you're giving a huge contract to. But, you're giving him not much for a year, most likely, around 20 to 18 million, depending on how the contract is structured. I know it's a little bit different than usual. So, the fact that you're able to get a guy like Matt Chapman, who is a bona fide all-star in this league, a guy who definitely is a star, for that little of money on a 1-year deal, potentially going up to 3, is just incredible value, in my opinion. Now, I think the Giants had a clear need at third base. Really, the guy they had there now was J.D. Davis, who was kind of the opposite of Matt Chapman, because Matt Chapman is one of the better defenders in the league at third base and overall in the league in general. Probably at this point one of the greatest defenders at third base in baseball history. I don't think it's that crazy to say with how long he's been in the league. And you had J.D. Davis there, who's a fine player. It's just, as a Mets fan who watched him for a long time on my team, I can tell you he comes with a lot of downsides. He can't really field that well. He can't hit high fastballs. I'm sure San Francisco Giants fans have seen this when watching him the past year and a half. So I think there's a clear need at third base to upgrade, especially if you do want to compete, as you said you do. And I think Chapman is a great fit for them. Again, getting him on this type of contract to me is such a steal. Now, again, he comes with great defense, but the bat is up and down. It's a little spotty, and that's, I think, why a lot of teams didn't want to give him a huge contract. But the fact is you're getting him for this bargain, and you have to do it no matter what. Even if his offense isn't that great, even if it's, a little below average or even average, you're still getting great defense for not a big price, and you're also getting name value. I mean, Matt Chapman definitely is a name value guy. A lot of people know who he is. So I think you're definitely getting that as well. So I love the deal for the Giants. I thought the deal made a lot of sense for Chapman. He obviously wasn't going to get the huge deal he was looking for. He turned down a huge extension from the Blue Jays twice, apparently. So it didn't really work out for him. But he gets to go to the Giants, a place where he's clearly comfortable because of the connections he has there with the Bay Area, with Bob Melvin. Gets to have a bounce back year in a way. He didn't have a bad year last year, but I guess a better year to prove to the team that he is worth the contract that he would like to get. And he goes back in the market next year. Hopefully secures the contract he wants, whatever it's going to be, 7 years, 200, whatever he wants it to be. So, I love the deal for both team and player. I thought it made so much sense from the start. I really did. It was just such a perfect fit of team and player. Sorry about that again. And I really thought it was just a perfect match. In the preseason, I didn't have him before my offseason predictions. I wasn't on the show obviously at the time, but in my preseason predictions just for myself, I did not have him going to the Giants, but I still had them as one of the better fits for him, just because again of all these connections. That was even before Bob Melvin was hired. Once Melvin was hired, it was pretty clear that the Giants made too much sense for Chapman. And eventually he does go there. Now, looking at the Giants now, just an overlook of their team, I don't think Chapman pushes them into automatic playoff contender status. I still think they're a really good team. Really good kind of a stretch. I still think they're a good team. But the problem with the NL is there's a lot of good teams and not a lot of teams outside of that tier. In my opinion, right now, you have you have probably 4 tiers of teams. You have the elite contenders, which is Atlanta and Los Angeles. You have the playoff locks in Philadelphia and Arizona. And then you have like 5 or 6 teams that are just really good, but aren't good enough to be ultimate contenders or even clinch a playoff spot. You have, teams I would classify in this spot as the Mets first. You have the Reds. You have the Cubs. You have the Giants. You have the Padres. Giants, I think we're already there, and I think Chapman still helps them. You can even argue teams like the Pirates or the Cardinals, even the Brewers. I wouldn't personally. I have the Cubs there already, but I wouldn't argue those 3 teams. But there's too many good teams in the NL. There's 2 elite teams, 2 really good teams, and then just 5 or 6 good teams. And the Giants, I think, are definitely bunched in there. Again, Matt Chapman's a really good player, but I don't think he makes them an automatic World Series contender. As of right now, I don't think I'd have them making the playoffs. I'd still give that 6th seed probably. I'd probably give it to the Mets still. Mets, Cubs, or Giants I would have. So as much as I don't have them, I still think they're in the running for it. I still think they're a really good team. I do think the Chapman addition helps them a lot. I just see the big problem with them right now is pitching. And we're going to talk about how they can maybe improve that pitching in the next segment. But they just had so many injuries, and it's just been so killer to that team. I mean, first losing Alex Cobb, I love Alex Cobb. I think he's one of the most underrated players in baseball. Just such a solid player who can, as soon as he signed that contract in San Francisco, he's just been such a good pitcher. Really, that legit number 2 guy behind Logan Webb. You traded for Robbie Wright, who you traded for. You knew he was going to be out for the first half of the season, so that's not really that crazy. But still, it is a loss. You then, you lose Tristan Beck because of a weird thing in his arm. You have Jordan Hicks, who is an interesting case because he's trying to transition from a hard-throwing reliever to a starter. So that's an interesting situation to watch unfold. I don't necessarily disagree with what the Giants are trying to do there. I think it makes a lot of sense considering right now because of the way starting pitching contracts are so expensive. But it is still a question mark because you're taking Jordan Hicks, who was an injury-prone reliever, and trying to make him into a legit starter. So I think it's an interesting experiment to see how it goes. And you have, first of all, you have Logan Webb, who of course is an ace, no doubt about that. Definitely number 1. After that, you have guys like Kyle Harrison, who I'm very high on. I think he's a great pitcher. I think is going to be a big part of that rotation. But again, is a rookie. You have Jordan Hicks, again, who comes with some question marks. So as much as the Giants are a good team, they have a good amount of question marks. And I think Chapman's a really good player, but I don't think he automatically just puts them in that top tier of contention. Could they sign a guy like Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery to solidify that pitching? I think so. We're gonna talk about that next segment. Don't worry. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but that's definitely possible. It's just the Giants have a lot of question marks right now, and as much as the Chapman signing is nice, there still are some things that need to be solved. You look at your offense right now. We talked a lot about the pitching injuries. The offense is still solid. Catcher, you have Patrick Bailey, who's a rising star, in my opinion. Had a great season last year. Can be their solution at catcher since Buster Posey retired and Joey Bart did not work out there. You have Wilmer Flores, who's a nice do everything player. Great hitter, can play multiple positions. You have Marco Luciano, who's going to be your shortstop. Matt Chapman now, of course, sliding in a third. You have Conforto, you have Mike Yastrzemski, you have the recently signed Jung-Hoo Lee. So the Giants have a good team. It's just they're in mediocrity right now. I think they're probably an 81 team right now if you look at it. Jorge Soler, Jung-Hoo Lee, Matt Chapman, all great signings. It's just it doesn't put them in that upper echelon of teams of those 4 teams that I think are playoff locks. So I think they needed something. I think they need something to kind of pull themselves away from the pack, and I think you can say that with the other teams I mentioned there. The Mets, the Cubs, the Padres, the Reds, other teams as well. So I think that's the problem with the NL right now. It's just that there's too many good teams, not great teams. And if I'm one of those mediocre teams that I have in this little group here, I do a big move that can pull myself away from the pack, whether that's a trade, whether that's a signing. I understand this later in the season, but in the spring training, you still have guys that are out there, which we're going to talk about next. Like I said, there's still some trade candidates out there that I'm sure you could get. So I don't think it's that crazy to think about. But just going back to this Giants overall, I still do love the signing, just pure bang for your buck mentality, and I think it was pretty great for that remark of it. I mean, again, getting a really good third baseman for this kind of price is pretty amazing, especially since he was still out there. I think it's a very good fit, just organization, team, player-wise as well. So I really do like this fit for the Giants. I like the signing. I'm glad the market's finally moving. As you can see, we kind of have a lot of stuff to talk about today, so I'm glad the market is finally moving. And I'm glad for the Giants. I still think they need another move, but Soler, Chapman signing in the past few weeks, great moves. Good job to see holes in your team and fill them right away. So great moves by the Giants. I still think they're kind of mediocre, but a lot of teams are, and if everything goes right for them, if when their pitching comes back, it performs really well, I don't see any reason why they can't make the playoffs, but it's going to be hard with the amount of teams that are kind of like them in the NL this year. So that is our first segment here. We're going to take a break here, but our second segment is going to be about the free agents. The other free agents, not named Matt Chapman. How does the Chapman signing affect them? Did we learn anything over the weekend about them? That kind of stuff. So, we're going to do that. But first, we're going to go to a break, and then we'll talk about it. So, yeah, thank you so much for that, and I'll see you after the break. Thanks, guys.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I would like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read on the air, please use the link gsmcpodcast.net. It really helps me. It really helps everyone else out here, and it means a lot, so thank you. And again, 51% of you who are watching our content are not subscribed, so to make sure that you are, make sure you get notified every time not only I, but also the amazing content creators on this channel get notified, put out a video. To get notified, please subscribe and turn notifications on. It really does help. It really does mean a lot. So thank you guys so much for that. And yeah, let's get back to the show here. So our second segment is going to start right now. Yeah, and it's going to be about the big free agents on the market, not named Matt Chapman, and how does the Chapman signing affect them, and yeah, just where I think they're going to go and stuff like that. So, of course, we had, starting off with the Boris 4, which was Cody Bellinger, Matt Chapman, Jordan Montgomery, and Blake Snell. Now we have two left. Also, one other big free agent who is not represented by Boris, who we'll talk about after. We'll talk about after the other two. He's part of this segment. But yeah, there's only two left. I'm glad it's finally moving. I don't know when these guys are going to sign, but I'm here to give you my opinions on it. So let's get straight into it. So first, we have to talk about, of course, the reigning NL Cy Young winner, Mr. Blake Snell. I think Snell is still in the market because he has a good amount of risk attached to him. The first thing is, of course, the up and down seasons. Of course, when he is on his top, when he's on the top of the game, he's won 2 Cy Youngs, which is, of course, the highest honor a pitcher can get. But when he hasn't been, he's had pretty bad seasons. So it's very interesting with Snell. He's had 2 of the best seasons we've seen of a pitcher in the past few years. And then the other few have he hasn't really looked like an MLB caliber pitcher. You know, when he's at the top of his game, he's striking out a ton of guys, being really dominant. But when he's not, he's, not even going 5 innings. He's walking a lot of people, giving up a lot of runs. So there's a lot of risk contained with Blake Snell, which is why I think he's still out there on the market. Some teams I have as fits for him. First, we have the Giants. Then we have the Angels, the Yankees, and the Phillies. So first for the Giants, there have been a lot of rumors connecting Snell to the Giants in the past few days. They need pitching. As I've said, they've dealt with a lot of pitching injuries, so him going to the Giants would just be a pure baseball fit that makes a lot of sense. Second, his old manager from last year and the year before that, Bob Melvin, also was in San Diego with him, so he knows him very well. I'm sure they have a good relationship. And they just need pitching. And I think getting a guy like Snell would really make that pitching staff so much better if you can get Snell on, the high points of where he can go as a pitcher. So I think the Giants make a lot of sense. Susan Slusser, who does cover the Giants, is one of the more reliable people who does cover them, said the Chapman signing does not affect them with Snell and still thinks they're very interested. I think this makes sense. I do think Snell is going to sign a long-term deal. I'll get with who I think it is going to be at the end. And Chapman is kind of a short-term deal, so I don't really think Chapman signing is going to affect them signing Snell in the long term. And I think Snell to the Giants just makes so much sense as a pure baseball fit The only thing I would wonder is if Bob Melvin wanted him, I think Bob Melvin would have gotten him already with where his contract situation is, with where Snell's contract situation is. I saw that on social media. I don't know who said it, but I definitely agree with that point. So it's kind of interesting to see where he goes with the Giants. There's been a lot of rumors connecting them, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Next, we of course have to talk about the Yankees. The Yankees have been long rumored with Snell. They need pitching, specifically high rotation pitching. You have Cole, but after Cole, you have a bunch of question marks. Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, Nestor Cortez, Clark Schmidt, Clayton Beeter, Luke Weaver, Will Warren, guys like that who are, some of those guys are depth, some of those guys are slotting in. But getting a guy like Snell would get you a very feared ace tandem of Cole and Snell, the Cy Young winners of this year, both of them in both leagues. I don't know when the last time that happened is. I'll check up on that. But, I think it would make a lot of sense for him. Again, they need pitching. The problem is they're just where they are at with the luxury tax situation after acquiring Soto, after signing Stroman, after signing Rodon last year. So I'm just not sure they can afford it, simply put, with where they are in the contract situation. I've mentioned this a few times now, but Ken Rosenthal said if they were to sign into a 1-year $40 million deal, just for example, it would really be 1 year $80 million. So I think that gives you an example of how it would affect the Yankees if they did sign Snell to a long-term deal. I just don't personally think it's going to happen, but crazier things have happened, and it does make a lot of baseball sense. So I don't think it's too out of the box to think it could happen. Next, we have the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies, of course, need pitching. They have Zack Wheeler, who they just recently extended, which we'll be talking about next segment. They, of course, have Aaron Nola, who they also re-signed. But other than that, you have a lot of question marks. You have Ranger Suarez, who's a good pitcher. But after that, you have Taijuan Walker, who hasn't lived up to his contract yet. Christopher Sanchez is more of a depth guy, who's probably going to be forced into a 5-starter role because of who they've lost. So I think Snell makes a lot of sense for the Phillies. I just don't think they're going to be willing to give him a long-term contract. We've heard a lot of rumors about them in short-term deals, but I don't know. Could that change now with Zack Wheeler being extended? Will they have less money? Were they looking at short-term deals because potentially they thought if they couldn't get something done with Wheeler, they could re-sign whatever guy they sign next year to kind of replace him? I don't know how that's going to work now with Wheeler signing. I don't know if it should affect them that much, but I think it definitely is a factor. But so after listing these three teams, I haven't listed one notable team, and that, of course, is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And that is where I do end up thinking. I think Blake Snell will go. Sorry, I don't know what happened there with those words, but I end up thinking that Blake Snell will go to the Los Angeles Angels and signing there on a long-term contract, probably 7 years, around $200 million. I'm not really sure what the AAV is going to be, but I'd probably say around 7 years. I've thought the Angels made the most sense for a long time now. They obviously have money to spend, considering they lost the best player in baseball to a team in their same city. You get Snell, you get another pitcher for that young pitching staff. I mean, the Angels have always needed pitching. We know this. I think Artie Moreno's willing to give out the big bucks for him. I think it's just him waking up one day saying, I want Blake Snell. And I think when that does happen, they will end up getting him. Blake Snell lives in Southern California in the offseason right now. So it makes a lot of sense for him to go there. Just with that sense as well. Again, they always need pitching, so I do end up thinking he goes to the Angels on a long-term deal. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes any to the other teams we've mentioned, maybe even a mystery team. I mentioned teams like the Orioles and the Philly and the Mariners in past as well, which I think also makes sense. So it's going to be really fun to see where Snell goes and see where he ends up signing. And I'm really, really interested, and I'm really interested to see how the contract works because of the up and downs we've seen with Snell. And I'm kind of in the camp of I would also not give him a long-term deal, but hopefully he can prove me wrong. Next player we're going to be talking about is Jordan Montgomery, the second remaining part of the Boars 4. Listing some of the teams for Montgomery, it's really the same as Snell. You have the Yankees, you have the Angels, you have the Phillies. Also 3 other teams involved with them. First, you have the Rangers. I think you have to list the Rangers simply because they are the team he is going to be leaving. We've heard that they want to bring him back for the longest time, but they just don't have the money. So I think if the money situation becomes more clear, they could bring him back. I think the Cubs make a lot of sense. Getting another starting pitcher in that rotation after re-signing Cody Bellinger, getting another big addition to that team. And finally, I did list the Mets. Maybe this is wishful thinking, but I do think they make some sort of sense. It's been reported that they're in contact with some of the big free agent starters left, not to offer a contract, just to see how their contract falls. If Monty does fall to a contract where it is affordable, I could see the Mets jumping in, especially with the injuries they've had so far in camp, with Max Kranick going down, the ace Kodai Senga going down. So I think that could make sense. But Monty's a really interesting situation because unlike Snell, there's not like one or two fits where you could definitely see him going or kind of think are above the pack. I don't really think there are. So purely speculation, I would think he goes to the Phillies on a shorter-term deal. I'm not sure how this would be affected with the Zack Wheeler extension, of course, which did happen this morning. I had a whole different segment planned for segment 3, but I woke up, saw Zack Wheeler was extended, and I put that in. So we'll talk about that next, of course. But I do think he goes to the Phillies. I think it makes a lot of sense for him. He lives in Boston right now in the offseason. I also forgot to mention the Red Sox as part of the fits for him. I don't know how I forgot that, but yeah, of course they make sense for him. We've heard this for a while now. I'm sorry about that. I forgot them. I don't know why I did. But I don't think he goes to the Red Sox just because of the money situation. I'm just not sure if they're going to be willing to dish out the money at this point. I think the Phillies will be. I think they see the lack of depth in their rotation right now. And I think getting Monty on a shorter-term deal, he returns to the East Coast, bringing him closer to his wife in Boston. Goes to a team where he can immediately try to win another World Series. So I definitely think the Phillies are a big fit. I could see him going there, creating a 1-2-3 of Wheeler, Montgomery, Nola would be just an incredible top 3. I think it makes a ton of sense. I'd probably have. I haven't gone to the Phillies. I think it's the Phillies, Red Sox, or probably the Rangers. If Snell doesn't go to the Angels, I think that opens up a spot for him to go to the Angels. But I think he does. I think Snell does go to the Angels. So, I think that's a big part of it. And I think Montgomery goes to the Phillies in the end, but I really am not entirely sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a team no one's really expecting. So, going to be interesting to see what happens with Monty and where he ends up going. So, I do think it's interesting that the remaining of the Boras 4 are pitchers. I think we're seeing that as a trend in baseball nowadays, where teams are very hesitant to give pitchers long-term contracts because of how much stress are on their arm nowadays, how they're progressing, how they're regressing. I think it's going to be a trend for the future that long-term pitcher contracts are going to be hard to come by unless you're a big guy like a Zack Wheeler, like a Corbin Burns, like a Max Fried, who we'll be talking about in the next segment. Don't worry. So, I think it's interesting. Both of the, of course, 4 left are pitchers. And again, I think it's going to be a precedent set for the future of big pitcher contracts and them pitchers probably not getting them to their liking. The last player we're going to talk about here is a DH, and that is going to be JD Martinez. There's been a lot of rumors about him. Blue Jays have been mentioned a lot. Diamondbacks were as well. Giants were, but apparently he did not want to go there, so he's not. I really have 3 teams going right now. I have the Angels. I think the Angels could add a full-time DH after losing Ohtani, kind of a trade of quote-unquote, because J.D. Martinez with the Dodgers last year, Ohtani, of course, with the Angels, so I think there could be a trade there, swapping teams. But, I also think the Mets make some sense. They've been mentioned here before, which is why I have them here. I think if his price drops down to a just really, really cheap for what his standards are and how good he is, I think the Mets could definitely jump in. But I also think they want to give their young guys like Beatty, like Vientos, like DJ Stewart, a chance to prove themselves. But if they don't really see much of them in spring training, much of their pedigree and potential, I think they could definitely look to get JD Martinez. But I think if they wanted Martinez, they would have signed him already. So I don't think that's very likely. Finally, the Rangers. I'm just mentioning them here because they do need a full-time DH. An upgrade at that position definitely is plausible. They've been mentioned in the rumors in the past. I think if Martinez wants to win, no better place to win than the reigning world champions, of course. So I think that makes some sense. But just looking where I think he lands, I really have zero clue. Like, I want to be frank. I don't want to just, BS my answer. I think a mystery team's going to step in here and, sign him. If not, I think the Angels make a lot of sense still. I'm not sure if they would have the money to sign both Snell and Martinez, but I definitely think they end up with one. And I do think even if they do sign Snell, Martinez is still a very good fit for them. So I'm really not sure where Martinez could go. But I think the Angels and Mets and Rangers do make some sense. But I think a big mystery team could step in here. I heard the Angels being speculated on social media. That was just pure speculation from what I see. Sorry, the Tigers. That was pure speculation. They have a younger DH in Kerry Carpenter, so I don't think they would replace him with an older guy like JD Martinez. But, of course, he did used to play there, so maybe a homecoming of sorts. Maybe they don't think Carpenter is ready. They could trade him for pitching. I don't really know. That's, again, more speculation, but I don't really have anywhere else for Martinez to go. I think he's more of a clear fit just because all he does is hit, and if a team does want a hitter, I think they'll sign him. But I do think he ends up getting signed before the season starts, but I don't know where he could sign. I would say the Angels are the most likely right now, but even that's just kind of throwing a dart at the dartboard, hoping it sticks. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But other than that, those are the free agent predictions I have for the other guys. I think with Chapman signing a short-term deal, I think it's definitely possible that Snell and Montgomery do sign short-term deals. Like I said, I think Monty will. I don't think Snell will because I think the Angels are going to give in and give him a long-term contract. But I think both Chapman and Bellinger taking short-term deals is interesting. I think it could be a trend that both Montgomery and Snell abide in, and both do. So I'm interested to see what happens there. With both those guys. I told you my prediction. Snell to the Angels, Martinez maybe to the Angels, doing the team as well as possible. I really don't know for him. And Monty to the Phillies, but also the Red Sox could jump in as well. So that is my second segment here. We'll be going to a break, but before that we'll be showing our third segment quickly, which is going to be about Zack Wheeler, him signing an extension with the Philadelphia Phillies. And just all about that, and we'll go to that after break. So we'll see you after that. So thanks, and see you after. Bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, and that is, of course, being what you see on the screen here, Zack Wheeler and him signing an extension with the Philadelphia Phillies. So, just going over this quickly, I thought Zack Wheeler signing an extension with the Phillies was fairly likely from the start. Everything we've heard is that he's very happy in Philly. The Phillies were very happy to have him. Of course, signing with the Phillies, he has turned into one of the best. He has turned into one of the best pitchers in baseball since signing there. One of the most successful free agent signings, in baseball since the in the 21st century. I think it made a lot of sense for Zack Wheeler to go there. Just talking to the chat a little bit, the guys commenting, yes, this is live. I'm live right now, so hello. Sorry for the audio listeners. They don't know what I'm talking about. But, keeping on with Zack Wheeler. It made a lot of sense for the Phillies to extend him with the amount of success he has had in Philadelphia. I thought it just, I don't know what I'm saying, sorry. Signing him is a great deal for the Phillies in the future. You get him, you solidify that rotation with him and Nola for years to come. The extension you gave was the biggest contract extension in baseball history for average annual value. And I think Zack Wheeler deserves it. Coming over to the Phillies from the Mets, there's a lot of doubt put on Zack Wheeler's name. A lot of people didn't really expect him to kind of live up to the contract. He got $100 million over 5 years. It's a huge contract for a guy who hadn't really proved himself. Had a lot of potential, but I think really did prove himself with that Phillies contract. Definitely deserves this. Was happy in Philly. The Phillies were happy there with him. So I definitely think it made a lot of sense for him to extend. $42 million over 3 years is an incredible amount of money for a pitcher especially. But again, he definitely deserves it. He's become one of the faces of that Phillies franchise. And I really do love this contract for the Phillies. Even though it is a lot of money, again, Wheeler deserves it. He's such a good pitcher. Probably a top 3 pitcher in baseball right now. And also looking for the long-term outlook of this, let's say you don't extend Wheeler, you lose him next offseason. What's going to happen then? There are pitchers available who we're going to talk about after in the next free agent class. But other than that, you have Nola as your ace, which is fine, but you're taking a big step back from the past where you've had Nola and Wheeler in the playoffs, which has guided you to the World Series. So it would have been a big step back for your team. So it's good to get the extension done now. Also, not put it into the rest of the season. So to get this out of the way, not get him distracted. And I think it made a ton of sense. Again, and I love the deal for the Phillies. I love the deal for Wheeler. Getting that bag, great for him. As a Mets fan, I'm really happy for him that he found a home. We didn't really treat him right there. Our GM's comments, Brody Van Wagenen, when he did leave, was pretty unprofessional, and I'm glad he proved a lot of people wrong. And even though he is on the Phillies, I'm glad he has turned into one of the better pitchers in baseball. He had so much potential coming over from the Giants in that Carlos Beltran trade to the Mets. Never really lived up to it to the Mets for whatever reason. Maybe it was organizational incompetence, injuries, stuff like that. But I think great deal for the Phillies. Great job to get this done. Great job to give me some news to talk about. So I'm glad about that. Looking at the Phillies, I still think they need to do something for this offseason. Extending Wheeler, re-signing Nola, great moves. But at the same time, it's still the same as last year. These are the guys you had on the team last year, not really improving. I don't think Whit Merrifield and Spencer Turnbull are the guys that are going to, automatically put you in contention status. It was, I still think the Phillies need to make a move here. I've had them getting Jordan Montgomery. They've been mentioned there. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to get Montgomery. Looking at this team right now, you have a good rotation now of Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker. You hope can bounce back. Christopher Sanchez, who's nice, going to fill into number 5. You have guys like Griff McGarry. You have McAble, who could potentially fill in the rotation, top prospects. I think the Phillies are going to be good for the rotation this year. Your bullpen may need a little bit of work. I think it's still pretty good, but you could add 1 or 2 guys always. It's the bullpen for baseball. You always can. The lineup, of course, is excellent. JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber. Just the amount of hitting talent there is incredible. You have the younger guy like Johan Rojas, who I definitely think is an X factor, who can definitely affect that team in a lot of good ways. So, glad for the Phillies to get this extension done. Glad for Zack Wheeler to get this extension done. And, just good for all parties to get this done. You don't want it lingering into the season. It definitely affects players whether they want to admit it or not if you are talking contracts in the season. And, it's a huge contract. Again, the biggest contract extension in baseball history off AAV. But Wheeler definitely deserves it. How he's shown himself, as being one of the better pitchers in baseball, for a little while now since coming over to Philly. So, great move for the Phillies, and glad this is happening. So, what I wanted to pivot to now for this segment as well is talking about how does this affect next year's free agent class for specifically starting pitching. Of course, people have been looking at Wheeler now for the past year or two as the top guy of the starting pitchers in the free agent class. A lot of teams who wanted starting pitchers next offseason, I think we're looking at Wheeler as a guy they could potentially sign. But now, obviously, he is off the market. So I think you have to look at the other guys as well. You first, of course, have Corbin Burns, the newest Baltimore Oriole. So, yeah, I mean, I think this definitely helps the market a lot. I think a lot of more teams are going to be desperate to give him a big contract now that Wheeler's off the market. I look at teams who could get a big free agent starting pitcher next year as first. Of course, you have to look at the Mets with how much money they have to spend with the amount of question marks they have in the rotation for the next year with the contract situations. I think Corbin Burnes going there would make a lot of sense. You also have the connection with David Stearns from Milwaukee. I think you also have to look at the Yankees, who could definitely use a big starting pitcher if Rodon doesn't work out, if Stroman doesn't work out, if they don't sign Snell and Montgomery. You have the Orioles, his current team right now. If it does work out there, I'd expect him to go hard at re-signing him. But I don't think Burnes is going to give a hometown discount, quote-unquote. I definitely think he's going to go for the biggest payday possible, as he should. When you're at that level of pitcher, you definitely should. And, I'm hoping he does. You also have teams who could get him. You have teams like the Astros, who may have some question marks in their rotation next year, who want to spend big again on another former Brewer. Obviously, they got Josh Hader, so maybe he could recruit his former teammate, Corbin Burnes, to H-Town. You have the Rangers, who are going to need some starting pitching, have some guys coming off the books next year, could potentially sign him. You have, of course, you have other teams like the Cubs, who I definitely think could be a fit, the Reds, Diamondbacks. A ton of teams could be in use for Corbin Burnes next year, and I think he's going to be much more in play now with a lot more teams because the fact that Zack Wheeler is off the market. You only have him and one other elite starting pitcher on the market, who I'm going to get to. So, yeah, I definitely think this helps Corbin Burnes' market a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how it affects it when it does come to free agency for next year, and what's going to happen with that. So, next, of course, we have to talk about the guy I was talking about before, the other elite starting pitcher on the market, and that is Max Fried. Again, he's kind of in the same camp as Burnes, elite starting pitcher was on the market for next offseason. I think he's going to be a lot more in demand now. I don't think he's re-signing with the Braves. I would be very surprised if he does. I think this is last year with them, just for the fact that they don't really give big contracts in free agency. They kind of try to extend their players early, and if they don't want to be extended, they just let them walk in free agency. And I think that's what's going to happen with Fried here. I'm not sure how comfortable Anthopoulos is with giving a long-term contract to a starting pitcher. So I think Fried, kind of the same teams I mentioned with Burnes. You have teams like the Mets. You have teams like the Padres, Yankees, Cubs, Astros, teams like that who could be looking for a top starting pitcher. I think that can make a lot. They can make a lot of sense for Max Fried and signing him. As we do know, he grew up a huge Dodgers fan in LA. He married his curveball from Sandy Koufax, the Dodgers legend. So I think the Dodgers made a lot of sense for Fried. But the fact if they signed Yamamoto, they extended Glasnow, they have Ohtani, of course, who's going to be pitching next year most likely. So I don't think they're a fit, but I think you have to look at West Coast teams for Fried. I think the Padres make a lot of sense as a team that could look for Fried. I still think the Mets do, even though it is East Coast. I think they're going to go hard for a big starting pitcher next year. I do think they're going to go hard for a big free agent in general, and I think it could be a starting pitcher. It could be a guy like Juan Soto, of course, Alex Bregman, or one of the starting pitchers like Corbin Burnes, like Max Fried. So you got to look at that here. But yeah, I think Wheeler coming off the market definitely helps Burnes and Burnes and Fried's market. Now teams have less options because you can't sign Zack Wheeler, who undoubtedly is the best of these three that I've been mentioning, him, Burnes, and Fried. Teams are going to be getting big contracts to Corbin Burnes, to Max Fried. There's going to be some. I think there's going to be a bidding war with some of these guys as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next offseason with these guys and what's going to happen there. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next offseason with them and how they are affected, Burnes, Fried, and what kind of contracts they do get, what teams are going after them. So, I think looking at this Wheeler extension, you have to look at how it affects next year because he was slated to be a free agent next year, because he probably was going to be getting a lot of attention as a free agent. So, definitely interesting to talk about. going back to the Phillies now, just quickly before we end this segment, I still think they're kind of the same place. I still think they need to add a big free agent like Montgomery, or maybe even a Snell, maybe even a JD Martinez. I don't know how that would work, but just listing guys here. So, yeah, I mean, just Philly's still a good team, but again, I said it before, I think they're in the second tier of teams, is not immediate World Series contenders, kind of just guys teams we know are going to be in the playoffs. I think they should look to add one more guy. I'm not sure how the Wheeler extension affects that because the money is next year, but it's definitely something to think about. It's definitely something to think about with the Phillies, what's going on with them this year and the future as well, the outlook for next year's free agency as well. So, yeah, definitely something to think about and definitely something to talk about. So, yeah, that's our third segment here. We're going to be going to our fourth segment, which is going to be about news around the league. Just general news stories I want to talk about, what's going on there. We'll be talking about that, but first we'll be going to our third break and our final break. So, we'll be talking about it after the break. So, see you then. Bye. All right, we're back here on our fourth segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. First, before we go to our segment, we do have a question from the comments, which is always good. So he asked, why do you think the Diamondbacks lost in the World Series? I assume he's talking about. So just quickly, personally, in my opinion, I think it was just experience. I think experience in the playoffs is definitely a huge thing. The Diamondbacks are a very good team, and they're going to be a very good team for a long time. But they just didn't have the experience. I mean, you have a lot of young, really good superstars in that team. You have guys like Zach Gallen, like Corbin Carroll, like Gabby Moreno, like Ketel Marte. Experience matters a lot, especially in the World Series, and just because they were a younger team, I do think it affects them, and I did think it affected them, and that was one of the main reasons why they did lose the World Series. I definitely think they're going to be someone to be messed with in the next few years. I have them currently as the fourth seed in the NL, second in the NL West. So definitely going to be a really good team for the future. But I think experience as well, especially when you look at the other side of the Rangers. You had a lot of veterans, a lot of guys who have done it before, especially a manager like Bruce Bochy, who's been to the World Series before and has experience there as well. So I think that experience is the main reason why. Losing in 5 as well, considering the final score of Game 5 was a blowout. But I still think Diamondbacks are great for the future. You said you have money down on them, which is not good. Sorry about that. Sorry you lost money, but I think they'll be back this year, and I think they'll be back with a vengeance, and they'll become the hunter, not the hunted. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do this season, and how they are as well. So yeah. Now going to our fourth final segment, which is news around the league. And that is going to be about, first we're going to be talking about a main story that happened just before I went on air, and that is about Josh Donaldson. Josh Donaldson, of course, is one of the best third basemen in baseball in his prime, won an MVP with the Blue Jays, has had played for the A's, Blue Jays, Braves, Guardians, Twins, and Yankees. Had a great career, announced his retirement. Also the Brewers this year, forgot about them. Announced his retirement today. I think he had a great career in the MLB. Was one of the better third basemen in baseball for a long time. Won an MVP, of course. So, definitely a great career for him. Congrats to him. Was always one of the best competitors in baseball. There's a great YouTube video from a creator called Baseball Doesn't Exist about Josh Donaldson. If you want to learn more about him, I definitely recommend that video. It's a great video. But he was one of the bigger competitors in baseball. Was a great third baseman for a long time in the league. And congrats to him on retirement. Hope he has a great after baseball career. And happy for him. Next, we'll be talking about some more negative news here for baseball for news around the league. The first one is going to be about Sonny Gray. He left a outing early today in spring training because of an injury. We don't really know much about it. It looks like it's some hamstring thing. I'm going to look it up actually, but definitely not a good sign for the Cardinals. Sonny Gray was definitely your big free agent signing. You don't really have much after him with the hamstring issue. There we go. Sorry, I didn't have that right away. It came on directly before I went to stream. So definitely not good for the Cardinals. Sonny Gray is kind of your only top tier pitcher. You have other guys like Lance Lynn, like Kyle Gibson, like Tink Hence, but Miles Michaelis as well, Steven Matz, but all those guys are kind of mediocre to bad. You signed Sonny Gray to be your real ace, and him going down would not be a good sign at all for the Cardinals. I already wasn't a fan of that rotation, and Sonny Gray going down would not make me change that idea. Would probably make me even lower on him. So they need him back as soon as possible. You don't want your starting pitcher on opening day to be Lance Lynn. You don't. Big deal I think for the Cardinals. We'll look for more. Hopefully, it's not serious for Cardinals Cardinals fans' mental state. Definitely hoping Sonny Gray's okay. But not good for the Cardinals, especially with the lack of depth in their rotation. Next, we have Kevin Gausman. He is also hurt. He got scratched from his bullpen today, dealing with general shoulder fatigue. Anything with an arm for a pitcher, of course, is never good, especially shoulder. Not a good sign, but it shouldn't be a big deal. Obviously, Gausman has turned into one of the better pitchers in baseball since coming over on a free agent contract to the Blue Jays. Was great before that with the Giants, but a lot of people had concerns about if he could continue his success with the Blue Jays on a huge contract. I think he definitely shown he can and has. Obviously, dealing with shoulder fatigue is not good, but still hoping he's okay. It's definitely wouldn't be good as well because of the Alek Manoah news that he, the fact that he is not performing well in spring training so far. They're hoping for a bounce back season from him, relying on him to be, maybe maybe the back end of the rotation, as well as the fact that, if someone were to get hurt, he could maybe fill in there after a horrid season last year, bouncing back. So not good for that. But not good for Gausman, not good for Blue Jays fans. But it doesn't seem to be serious, so I'm hoping he can come back. If there are any updates, we'll tell you. I suspect it'll be more updates tomorrow on our show. So not good. But he's a trooper, Kevin Gausman. Hasn't gotten hurt much, and looking forward to seeing him bouncing back out of this and seeing what can happen there. Next, we have some Mexican League signings, which is interesting. Before we do that, another question from the comments here on YouTube. I love this. Keep interacting. It's great. What baseball players do I think are starting to lose their edge? I think a lot are. I think, first I would probably say, unfortunately, it's probably Mike Trout. He's getting older, dealing with a lot of injuries. Has not been the same Mike Trout. What age? Sorry, yeah. First, I'll continue. What age? Yeah. I definitely think 35 is around the age that baseball players start to regress. I think that's kind of the age where you're still a good player, but you're definitely starting to go down on the level that you once were. Getting older, kind of just regressing a little bit with physical abilities, talent as well. So I definitely think 35 is a key age, but I think overall as well, just players in general, just getting older, I think is something you have to be mindful of. Football is definitely more intensive on the body, as you're saying in the comments. Baseball obviously isn't as much because you get a lot of breaks in between. You bat only once every 3 innings, most likely. You don't have a ball come to you. You don't have a lot of pressure on you for defense for every single play if you're someone other than the pitcher or catcher. So definitely. But going back to the news around the league, Greg Bird, Harold Castro, and Robinson Cano, they also have signed in the Mexican League, which is interesting. Greg Bird, a name people haven't talked about for a long time. A guy that was a big guy for the Yankees in the past, and for a while back was looking to be part of the Baby Bombers. Obviously, it didn't really work out. Now he's signing with the Mexican League. So, that's something to look for, see if he can maybe rebound his career. Harold Castro as well, another guy who kind of flamed out in the big leagues after some solid season with the Tigers. Of course, the big one is Robinson Cano, him signing with the Mexican League. Just a big difference from where he was the past few seasons, being a starter on the Mets, getting cut, playing with the Padres and Braves, and not good. He was not good there. So definitely a big career turnaround for Cano, but maybe he can bounce back in the Mexican League. Turn his career around. I doubt it, but I'm looking forward to seeing him in the Mexican League. And it was an interesting signing. Next, we have the Diamondbacks. They signed Elvis Andrus to a minor league deal. I like the move, bringing some more depth to that shortstop position. You have Jordan Lawler, who's probably the future of that shortstop position for the Diamondbacks. But you needed some veteran depth because maybe he's not going to be ready on opening day. Maybe he'll be ready later in the season. You have guys like Kevin Newman who could have filled in. But I think Andrus, with the experience he has, being a veteran guy who knows how to do the right thing, I think it was a nice signing by the Diamondbacks to get him there, get him as a minor league signing. No real risk to that. And I like the depth signing for them, signing a veteran shortstop, and they have a younger guy coming up soon. So, good for them. Some bad news for the Brewers. We learned that Wade Miley has soreness and he may miss opening day. With the big losses to their starting pitching already with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. Of course, you did re-sign, but he is out for the season. Wade Miley was kind of factored in as your number 2 guy behind Freddie Peralta. So I definitely think it's a big loss for the Brewers. But after that, I just don't know how the Brewers are going to be. It's definitely not a good thing that Wade Miley's out, but I don't think they're going to be that great anyways. So, definitely a negative here. But, so bad. Have a good day to you as well in the comments. I can't say your name, unfortunately, but, have a good day as well. Vaughn Grissom, he has a groin strain and may miss opening day. Not great news for the Red Sox, as he's probably going to be factored into their middle of the infield lineup. Thank you for the sub in the comments again. I appreciate it. Always means a lot, so thank you so much for that. Vaughn Grissom, he has a groin strain, may miss opening day. Not a great move for the Red Sox, but still shouldn't be that big of a deal. Should come back pretty recently after that. Was, of course, acquired in the big Chris Sale trade for the Red Sox. It definitely factors into their future of the middle infield. I'm looking forward to what he can do in Boston. And, not great, but I don't think it's a big deal. The Angels, we talked about them building up Andrew Wentz, the starting pitcher in camp, and they're also going to be doing the same to Jose Soriano, who's been a nice, solid reliever for them over the past few years. It's a good move by the Angels. Of course, as Rod Washington, their new manager, said, they don't have enough pitching depth. So, of the fact that you get Jorge Soriano, maybe he becomes a really good starting pitcher. I like the move. A lot of teams are doing it, of course. We've seen this so many times now with so many teams building up relievers they think can be starters as starting pitchers in camp. And, hopefully it works out for the Angels and get some new starting pitching. The Brewers, they signed Kevin Hergert to a minor league deal. That's a nice signing for them. Getting some depth in their bullpen. And yeah, good for them. A weird delivery, one of my favorite deliveries in baseball, so kind of about that. So a good signing for them. Just going over some, before we head out of here, just going over some little things for the weekend and spring training, what was going on there. Juan Soto, I want to mention him. He hit his third home run with the Yankees, just off to a tear still with the Yankees. I mean, they traded him for that. They traded for him for a reason, and I think it's showing why now. He's been on such a tear, and great for Yankees fans, not great for everyone else. That the fact that Juan Soto's on the Yankees. Also, you had Ahmed Rosario hitting his first home run with the Rays against Paul Skeens, so that's a nice sign for them. And yeah, just some other general news for spring training, just some scores as well. We'll probably talk about it tomorrow. But nothing too crazy happened over the weekend. Obviously, it was more news with Chapman and Zack Wheeler. So I talked about that. So that's the end of our show today. Thank you guys so much for watching, for liking, subscribing, all that. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. So thank you so much. We'll see what baseball throws at us tomorrow. And thank you so much for the support. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks, and bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.